And we are live. You are back with the Scaling Europe show. We are very, very, very excited to be here. We've got a great lineup of guests today. And first on the roster is Tom. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, good to be here.
We are
Hi, Tom.
Thrilled to have you. Before we kick off, why don't you just give a quick intro to who you are and what you're building?
Sure. So I'm Tom. I'm one of the co-founders of Plinth. We're an AI platform powering community impact. So we work with charities, social enterprises, and parts of local government, essentially automating their back office. So everything from how they give out money, reporting on who they support, checking through safeguarding and compliance logs to highlight any issues of sort of vulnerable people that they're helping with. So we work with around about just over 1,500 organisations, mostly based in the UK, with a team of 10 of us based in London at the moment.
And where did this idea come from?
Well, so I think it's really interesting. If you look at the kind of charity sector as a whole in the UK, like over 1 million people work for them. And most of the people who go into work for charities, they're doing it to make some sort of positive impact in their community. If they're kind of running a youth club or a food bank or supporting people with disabilities, like they're helping people find jobs for the first time, that kind of stuff. But then if you go into those jobs, you do it for that reason. But most of the time, you actually spend up probably half of that time not doing that. Instead, you kind of end up writing notes, compiling reports for trustees, doing Excel analysis for different funders. And so I did lots of different work with charities before we started this. And you kind of keep coming in and seeing people solving those same problems over and over again that aren't really kind of at the core of what they do. It's pretty repetitive, it's kind of dull, and it's not really what they want to be doing with their lives. So we decided that we could try and solve that for all of those different organizations all at once, rather than one by one.
Super cool. How do you find them? How do you acquire them? Or I could imagine that a lot of these types of organizations are not the typical ones looking for AI solutions.
Absolutely, yeah. So what we do is we work with quite a few different ways. So the charity sector is quite well connected to each other. So one of the big ways that happens is a lot of funding comes from like grant makers or commissioners. So big pots of money stashed away as a foundation that will give money out to different groups to go and deliver a service. And what we do is we work with those organizations first. So we provide tools for them to help them give that money out really effectively. And then obviously they would introduce us to all the charities that they actually provide money to. They might then have other funders that they work with who they can introduce us to in part. So it kind of spirals slightly along those lines.
There's like a really nice
so you have
network
like a multiplier.
Effect. Yeah. You don't, it's interesting. You don't kind of expect to see those network effects in sort of like a charity organization, but that's really interesting, I guess. You kind of get your foot in the door with some of the big names and it just kind of snowballs from there.
And it's pretty local and regional. So like we have little hotspots. So like North London, like Merseyside, and like in the northeast up by Newcastle, we've got like a really clear hotspot of lots of people using Plinth. And then in other places in like Bristol, we might have hardly anyone. So it is kind of interesting how that you need that kind of critical mass to get to real traction in a place.
I'm really curious because I actually work with a charitable foundation, like as an MD and like as a side project, and I'm always kind of I don't really know a lot of peers in that field, so I'm really, really curious. Of your customers, do you see some best practices or charities that are more like tech forward, that have kind of done really interesting things? I would love to hear a story or two on who's like at the forefront of AI and tech implementation in charities.
Yeah, so I guess probably on the foundation side, we've got a lot of very good clients. The ones who we started working with most intensively on the AI things is an organization called Point North Community Foundation. Mm-hmm. So they're based in the Northeast. The person who's the CEO there used to be a venture tech investor in the Northeast, so she had like a bit of a leg up on this front. And actually, essentially, they brought us in to say, I know you're doing some interesting stuff with charities delivering services. Can you help us with how we give money out? And then kind of just laid out their process end to end and said to us, like, where can AI fit? Where can that make things easier? Where can we end up spending more time with people who actually want to give money to, rather than reading through paperwork and doing analysis? And so that was really useful. What that's meant is, there are lots of processes involved with giving out money, reading through policies, accounts, governing documents, double checking the people involved, doing reports every quarter to say, what did you spend the money on? Was that what you said you were going to spend it? Obviously that's perfect for AI because it's just loads and loads of long narrative written content that you can now analyze very, very quickly when you couldn't before.
And a lot of accounting, because there's like
Yeah.
reimbursement rules and so on.
No, exactly. Yeah, but it's all kind of skilled, kind of difficult work, but repetitive, and there's a set guidebook and a rules about how you can do it, which is obviously perfect.
Is there like a level of skepticism within the charity sector about adopting tools like AI?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. They're very conservative. So I think that's a couple of things. So firstly, they're often very conservative institutions. Like some of the organizations we're speaking to are over 400 years old. So, they're not likely to jump on the new hot thing just because it's arrived. We've had a number of organizations who said, we'd love to work with you. This all sounded amazing. We just wanted to wait a year to see if you're still around. Like that kind of a thing that happens very often. So there's a little bit of that. I think also, there's an understanding that investing in tech and investing in tools is a very challenging thing for charity to do because the bar is extremely high. So, every pound that you spend on software is a pound you can't spend helping someone who's homeless, food for someone who's really hungry, or like buying a birthday present for a kid at a community centre. And that's an extremely high bar to meet to offer software to. It's not quite the same as a business.
And so do you have to proposition it in terms of like ROI in your time? So, we'll save you time and you can use that time to get back to your core focus. Is that the proposition that you try and sell to charities with?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you have a load of work you're doing that isn't fun and does take up loads of time and means that the people who work for you or work in your organization are sort of bogged down in process. And that can get in the way of actually doing a good job of like building a relationship with an organization or a person who they want to help. And so if you can use AI to remove that friction that's getting in the way of that, that's great, rather than kind of replacing those person-to-person relationships, obviously.
Yeah, nice. Can I ask about like the size of the market or the size of the opportunity here? You said you're very focused, so you've got a very big stronghold in the northeast of England. I also saw that you recently, I think you travelled to the US maybe a month or two ago to see if your product could work there. Is this a big market in the UK? Is this a product that you can scale across Europe and the US? And I guess like how big is the overall ambition?
Yeah, so the total income to charities in the UK is £90 billion a year. Like worldwide, it's sort of just over $2 trillion. Wow. A huge amount of that is obviously in the US. It's actually mostly a English-speaking country thing. It's not quite as big in countries in like mainland Europe, for example.
Yeah.
So that puts it as like close to 5% of world GDP. We're talking like bigger than defense, insurance, energy, like much bigger than software in general. And if you look at all of that money that's spent, a huge chunk of that is spent on operational support for the delivery, not for services and support delivered themselves. And so we're looking at that saying, actually, we can support to bring those processes down so that you don't have to spend as much time in them. And it's probably, it's a huge, massive opportunity that we're very excited about as a result.
And sorry. Seb, go for it.
No, I was going to say, do you ever struggle to wed? The first company I worked at was like a social impact startup. And the thing that they always struggled with was like wedding the commercial ambition, the need to be a big, profitable, revenue generating business with the sort of the social cause that they're championing and chasing. And sometimes they were getting pulled in separate directions, where sometimes what was best for their clients wasn't necessarily what's best for the P&L. Do you ever face that struggle as a kind of like a company that is trying to be commercially successful, but working with a social cause at its heart?
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I think we've kind of structured things so that we're very focused on providing that really high quality service to the like charitable or social enterprise organizations that we're working with. And I think that bar that they have on us forces us to provide a massive amount of value in order to sell a product that they would like. I often find in practice it goes the other way around, where the more sort of pro-social and good stuff we can do, actually the more that shows up positively on the business. I think a good example was last week we announced that we're launching like a mini foundation. So rather than spending a bunch of money on like Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever, we're giving money out to charities that we do work with or might work with just as direct funds. And to be honest, that's been a much better return on that marketing spend than we would have got if we had invested it somewhere else. So like, it's quite nice that often we're in a business where those things just align very nicely and naturally.
How do you think about the pricing, because I fully agree the market is huge, so just the pool of capital in charities is huge, but I could imagine, if I just look at also my own operation there, that the willingness to pay for like operation software could be limited, because sort of there's a bias to say, yeah, but every last dime should, be going to the charitable causes. Is that something you run into, or how do you sort of think also of your like expansion of take rate?
Yeah, of course. And I think, we operate a very kind of classic vertically specific software model where we have, what we think of as like the operating system for delivering those services and for giving out money. And then, we layer lots of things on top of that so that you're just getting, a huge amount of value bundled into one place so that you can amortize the costs of all of those different pieces of software into one subscription for us. But on the flip side, actually, one of the things we do is we offer, extremely generous free tier to loads of charities that are delivering services. That's really helpful, because when I spoke about those kind of network effects of a funder introducing us to lots of charities, they're not willing to do that unless there's an option for that to be a free platform, at least initially. So that's really important for like our growth, is that we've always got that option to not pay us anything. But then if we're delivering a really good job, then organizations will invest in that relationship further and buy more things from us, basically.
Super interesting. So especially kind of the smaller operational charities get it for free, because they're the ones who really need to like look at every single pound, versus the funds that also probably have more of that internal ops work. They benefit the most, and they mainly pay, I guess.
And the thing about charities is like a pound is not a pound for a charity. So the majority of income that a charity gets is restricted. So what that means is I'm not legally allowed to spend it on whatever I want. I have to spend it on what I said I'd spend it on. So that might be, and that could be like written into a contract 3 years up front. So that might be I have to spend it on a salary, or I have to spend it on rent or whatever. I can't just on a whim go and spend it on software. So it's so hard for a small organization to commit to, like an annual subscription. Off the bat, that's incredibly difficult for a small organization to do.
Yeah, got it. That's really interesting. Can I, you are someone who is building, an AI tool kind of at the frontier of charities and this whole sector. What's your take on AI overall and the direction that it's moving in? Do you see this as being an overall force for good, or do you have lots of reservations about, the large models that we're seeing being built, the data that they're using, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of reservations, I think, which is probably not what you're supposed to say when you're building AI tools that kind of fits into this sector. But I think it obviously depends on how you use it. I think the straightforwardly positive things, if you can remove painful drudgery tasks, help people learn new things, do things better, discover new skills, great. I think everyone agrees with that and doesn't disagree. I think there's lots of issues with, obviously the latest thing around Anthropic and the downloading a lot of data from a pirate website. There's lots of ethical questions there. There's the sort of existential risk of, does AI develop in an unaligned way and become too capable and kill everyone? That's obviously something that wouldn't be great. And then there's kind of more prosaic risks, like if you're just reducing the friction of doing things, you see it in the job market. It's so easy to apply for jobs now that it's really hard to work out it's really hard as a hiring manager to deal with that. It's kind of the same kind of thing within the charities of people applying for grants, messaging donors. It becomes very hard to know who is doing what well, because AI has sort of lowered the playing field, which sounds like a good thing, but might have disadvantages as well.
That's really interesting. So do you see that sort of like same level of spamming that you might get on a LinkedIn job application as you now see for grant applications?
100%. Like loads of funders are getting 4, 5, 10 times as many applications than they used to, especially if they're like broad brush, just send us what you want us to fund. That is now so easy that they are inundated.
So we get into this parallel situation where AI is writing the applications, and then on the other side, AI is also reviewing them, and it's just sort of like AI to AI.
Yeah, and I think, so that sounds really stupid. I think there's possibly some good things, which basically says if an AI can constantly summarize the impact you're having and can constantly send that to the people who are most interested in funding it, that's actually amazing, because that's like you never have to put the effort in and you're just getting funding to the place it needs to go. That'd be great. The intermediary steps might be a bit weird.
Yeah.
One issue I often see in that sector, because like what we mainly do is evaluate smaller charities and see which ones to fund from the foundation. And an issue we often see is just data, because they're not, the DNA of these companies is not to sit there and like track, oh, we've helped so many people and then we've done this and then we've done this. But then when you sometimes double tap on what they're actually doing, they're doing so many insanely impactful things, but it's just their DNA is more actually just do it, just help people. I care about that, but I don't care to be tracking it, spreadsheet, da da da. So there I would have like I would personally have, reservations around whether AI can even summarize that when that's just not how they think. Is that what you're seeing? What do you see?
Absolutely, yeah. So that happens all the time. Amazing organizations do fantastic work, struggle to demonstrate that, especially if you're looking at it from more of like a data lens. And so that's one of the things we do is we offer an entire tool to start collecting that information in a way that feels fairly seamless and fits into your operations rather than feels like filling an Excel spreadsheet. Because otherwise, you're right, there's nothing for AI to go on. So it would just have very little to be able to summarize. So we have to do the whole infrastructure to collect that information before we can even start doing the summaries of what impact has been had.
Yeah. And where do you think you'll go from here? Will you go even deeper into that part? So demonstrating impact, et cetera, or will you go more into towards the fund management side, since what you mentioned earlier, sort of the ones who pay you are the fund type structures, or do you have a completely different vision? What are you thinking of doing?
It's both, right? So we all do both at the same time, which is hard for us as an organization to keep our eyes on both. But because they're so naturally aligned in that if you are an organization giving out funds, you really want to know what you're achieving with it. It makes complete sense to be working on kind of both sides of that fence to be able to actually collect that information. And then it allows you to do interesting things. Like I am maybe applying for a funder and I can tell you straight away that you're not a good fit for that fund. But I can say, but you are actually a good fit for these 3 or 4 others. We can help you draft that application, and then we can help you do all the reporting afterwards and actually set up that relationship for you. So like building that network kind of requires us to work on both sides of it.
That makes sense. So get more of the network effects going between the two sides.
Exactly, yeah.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Super exciting.
And can I ask, I guess we're kind of running out of time, but I think the final question I would ask is, what have been the biggest mistakes or learnings from this journey so far?
So mistakes. So this has been a long journey for us actually. So we've been a company for 7 years, and we kind of over the last year or so really started seeing a lot of traction and growing very quickly. So I suppose a lot of my learnings and mistakes are around what you do in that 6-year period when things aren't going quite as well as you might have hoped. I think for us, it would have been nice if we launched a product right off the bat that had been a breakout success. That didn't happen, and we sort of took the hard road of just grinding it out relentlessly, kind of working with the same industry, trying to solve those problems. I think there are lots of mistakes we made in that, it would have been great if we'd launched a product that worked immediately, more quickly. But kind of the thing that got us through that was obviously having a co-founder that I trusted and we knew we were both going to stick around for ages, but also actually enjoying working with the customers that we work with. If we got a little bit down about the fact that things weren't going as quickly as we thought, we could go and do a visit to a community centre or a youth club or a community nursery and just kind of see what they're doing and see the massive difference it made. And that was like inspiration enough for the next few weeks. And if you do that every 2 days, you're kind of still flying high, even if things aren't from the outside looking all sort of shiny and roses.
Amazing. No, it's great to,
Awesome.
we speak to a lot of founders, a lot of AI founders, but there are very few people who are building at this kind of intersection of AI and charity and are really applying AI to use cases which have genuine social impact. So look, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Like it's lovely to hear about what you're building. But yeah, let's stay in touch and let's chat soon.
Yeah, it's been really good. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Super cool. There aren't that many people in this space, but I think he's right. There's such a big market. There's such a huge amount of money spent on charities and causes like this. So I think it makes it really interesting, especially when there aren't that many players there.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for me the big question is really, what do you build for the DNA of those sectors? Because they just do have a bit of a different DNA and are not necessarily motivated by the same things, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
like just from my like internal lens of that industry, like I would kind of just question how much do they really care about efficiency gains? Like, is that something you can motivate someone who works at a charity with? I'm not, I don't think all of them respond to that, but it's interesting. They seem to have found such an interesting wedge.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a, yeah. I think you kind of touched on it, but it's probably such a hard market to sell to because they're not focused on, like you say, the efficiency gains, and they are old-fashioned and traditional. But next up, we have got Dimi, who you know,
Dimi.
right?
I know Dimi. Yes, exactly. Good friends.
How come? Like, what's your history? What's your background with him?
So his wife, Victoria, who is the main operations leader at 11 Labs, actually, they all met at Palantir, and she's like a really old good friend of mine back from Germany.
No
So
way. Okay.
that's like the initial story, but Dimi and I have been catching up over venture stuff and the company he's building over time, and I think it's super super interesting, and he has so much momentum right now with this whole pretty much announcement economy where people are creating so many of these types of videos. Everyone understands the power of distribution and telling your own story, and they fit so perfectly into that. So I'm really, really keen to understand a little bit of his thinking behind all the things they're doing.
Yeah, and that launch video that he did, it absolutely popped off. Like, it absolutely popped off, didn't it? And I think we've got him, but I think he is not in VDO yet.
No, I don't see him there.
Hello.
Hello. Can hear you very well. Can't. I am pumped for this conversation. We were just talking about all the amazing stuff you've done this year, so we're very, very excited to learn more about it.
I appreciate it. Very nice to see you again, Paula. Very nice to meet you, Seb. Have been seeing great things, and Paula has shared some cool stuff. So excited to chat about everything.
Amazing. No, look, we're live right now. We're streaming, and it is so great to have you. So thank you for joining us. And why don't we've given a bit of context, but why don't we hear it from yourself? Tell us like who you are, what you're building.
Yeah, for sure. So we started Wondercraft a couple of years ago. In the beginning, the goal was to make it possible to create audio content very easily. And using AI voices, we recognized that it was very challenging to create a proper podcast. So with the rise of AI voices, we thought that we can make that flow a little bit easier. And that has been our journey for the past 18 months or so. And we're now evolving into becoming a video platform as well, meaning you will have the capability of creating by leveraging AI tools. And there's two components to that. One is using generative AI models as part of your creation process. But the biggest component and the innovation that we're bringing into this market is having that AI agent that will be next to you to help you in the creative and the editing process. We've called this AI agent Wanda, as a derivative product, as a derivative name of Wondercraft. And Wanda is that creative assistant that can help you to get going. I think what we're finding after we spoke to a lot of people that would be prospective users for video, we recognize that everyone knows that there's new models out there. There's some cool models from Veo, cool models from Runway. That's just video. Then you have Nano Banana, so many for images, so many for audio, music, sound effects, voice. The challenging thing now is how to leverage how to leverage all of them to create an engaging video. No one wants AI slop. Definitely, that's not what we're aiming. So the first and primary thing that Wanda does is being aware of all of these models and what each one specializes in, and suggests, as part of the creative process, suggests to the user what is it that they need to do. To give you an example, to make this a little bit more concrete, say that I'm the NBA or a basketball association, and I want to create an ad. You will go to Wanda. You will describe what the key message is that you want to create, and what are the assets that you have available. The more assets, of course, the better. But realistically, you might just have like the logo or a few images, and that can be a good starting point, right? And then from that point on, you may give a little bit of a creative direction, like you want it to be like, you want to have a little bit of a mystical approach, or you want it to be inspirational. And then it's Wanda's job to go and suggest that, okay, for this frame, for this scene, we can use Runway model to create this. For that scene, we can use the other model. This can be like a collection of images. We can use this song, or we can generate a new song with the 11 Labs music model, generate sound effects on the spot. So this is a little bit of the vision that we have for the future of video. This is not something that has been available. And there's many people that create video quite a lot, and or there's many people that would want to create video and have struggled until now. So we're moving to this space where it's just creating video by chatting to an AI. That's really the innovation that we're bringing to the market.
Yeah, it's super interesting because there are so many models out there. And for example, I would say I'm like quite quick to adopt some of them, but you feel a little bit left alone with it, right? You're like, oh, okay, now there's Veo 3. Now I need to like myself go figure out what it's good at and like for which of my use cases I use it. And so you're like hopping between these things. And if I understand you correctly, you bring all that together, and Wanda is almost like your advisor and your co-editor who tells you, oh yeah, for that use case, you're going to want to use this model, and really helps you navigate that whole stack end to end.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Paula. The way I think about it, it's basically there's 3 layers to Wondercraft. The first one is it's a video editing platform. There's quite a few of those out right now. There's a second stack, which is an application layer of all of the top AI, generative AI models across all of the modalities. And then finally, there's a third layer of Wanda, that's the creative assistant that helps you across everything. So that is the future of Wondercraft.
Very cool.
Who are your main users now? Sorry, Seb.
Yeah, so until now, our product has been very much audio focused, and our main users are people that are either creating podcasts or ads or meditations. For podcasts, it's not so much the Joe Rogan style, the long bantery podcast. It's more so informative podcast conveying some information. Where we've seen a huge rise is podcasts for internal communications. As an example, the World Bank is a customer using podcasts to convey the research that they do, that their research team does to the rest of the bank in an easy way. But also, like many other organizations, Novartis, Siemens, the Harvard Business School, quite a few organizations are using Wondercraft to create internal communications podcasts. But apart from that, as I mentioned, there's the ads use case has been big for us. It's similar to what I was describing before, but for the audio world alone. And for that, think about there's so many ads. Most of us are on Spotify Premium, so we don't interact with the ads, but Spotify makes about 15% of its revenue does come from ads, and these ads need to be produced somehow. So Spotify uses Wondercraft to create ads on behalf of their brand advertisers. Amazon, something similar for their music streaming service and Alexa, and iHeart does the same, Sirius does the same. So those are a few of the use cases right now. But everyone, including the companies that I just mentioned, everyone has been asking for video. So that came kind of organically for us because our users wanted it. But our vision grew about what it is that we can do rather than just allow them to add an audiogram and publish it on YouTube. Our vision grew as we were planning on going to video, and we decided to make this a very big product, which effectively kind of transitions all of our company into video rather than being a supplementary feature to audio.
And can I ask about the launch video? I mean, the launch video was phenomenal, went super, super viral. Like it had its real moment kind of across social media. Was that what you were expecting, or did that go much bigger than you had hoped?
I love that question, Seb. I've been deep into launch videos. I know Paula. Paula is my dear friend, by the way. So we.
I already gave the background.
Yeah. Okay. And I know Paula spends a lot of time on X as well, and it's chaos of startups launching right now.
Yeah.
And it's so good. Like the inflation of quality of launch videos, which of course is a product of how much building is happening right now, and you need to break through the noise somehow. But concretely, yeah, appreciate the kind words, Seb. If I expected it, you can never expect it, right? Like you can never know. You can never know if you're going to break through the noise. The best you can do is create the best quality that you can. Try for it to be just like contextually relevant to the people that you want to engage on the post and eventually with your company. And then of course it's kind of I guess like an art. You need to play with the algorithm a little bit, understand that as an concrete example, LinkedIn and X start with muted videos when you're scrolling, right? So you need to scroll and you have 5 seconds where you need to grab the attention visually alone. So like, how do you do that? And then what are these shots? It needs to be very fast. Do you decide to do a product demo, or is it like a memery style video like the one we did? Or is it a founder video that's just presenting what it is? You need to make all those decisions, and you can never know. Just to share a little bit more, for us, it was just a little bit of inspiration of like, what were the good launch videos that we had seen before? We reached out to find out like, who were these people that created those launch videos, and then worked with them to create this product, and it's been very good. Like it created that moment that we wanted, and from that point on, the wait list for Wanda has been growing, and we're 4 weeks out from releasing it to the world. In fact, just now we released another similar video, half an hour earlier before I joined, that just basically keeps that momentum going.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go check that out.
Yeah. Go check that out.
And do you have like maybe a tangible tip or two for the founders out there who also want to do a really good launch video, apart from that they should use Wanda, which they should? But do you have something that you've learned now? I mean, you've also been posting your 40 mistakes videos, which we can get to in a minute. But are there some tangible tips where you're like, this is actually something I've learned that can help?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that actually helps quite a lot, you've seen, and this is not the quality of video, but more so fitting it in on socials. First thing is like, you kind of need to optimize for the platform of choice, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's X. I would suggest either one of those to begin with. For most of people that are watching this, I can only imagine that those would be the platforms of choice. Yep. These two platforms have developed different languages between them, and depending on which one you want to optimize for, the outcome of the video will be a little bit different. As an example, LinkedIn is a little bit better for founder speaking head video. On X, most likely that wouldn't go far. And another thing to add here is something that's quite valuable for LinkedIn more so than X, is to request someone to comment, for example, comment Wanda to get early access or to get to bump on the wait list. Many people include that on the caption, and that's, of course, step one. It's very easy for you to do that, but including it in the video itself as the final CTA of the video, if you're launching on a wait list, for example, to say comment Wanda to get access, like basically just say what you're including in the caption. That was very significant for us. For X, for example, we didn't even have that caption, and people were commenting quite a lot. So include that as like the very last part, because engagement is very important. So you need to like push people towards the engagement. And a final thing, of course, but that's just for like every post, like just make sure that the day that you're launching, you have some people to boost that launch in the beginning, because you just need to get the algorithm recognizing that this is something different.
Yeah, and you seem to now also be building in public, kind of double clicking on the storytelling you've been doing around your 40 mistakes while building the company. Yeah. How has that been going? What has been your thought process behind it? What's the main goal, and are you fulfilling that goal?
Yeah. So I guess there were two objectives from this one. The first one was, in full transparency, to keep a little bit of attention going on us and build community until we release Wanda. It was 40 days between the release, the announcement of Wanda, and then 40 days until the launch of Wanda. So that's kind of like what instigated that title. Concretely, how that was formulated, saw a couple of people doing something similar with their own style on X, just doing that daily. And I found that quite inspiring. I do feel quite comfortable in sharing in speaking in that kind of medium. I've always felt inspired by creators like Casey Neistat that just did that daily. And then when I say that, I mean, I'm only doing 0.1% of what Casey Neistat did, but being on the camera daily, and building that consistency and building that community, I know that it adds value. I saw some other people doing something similar right now, and I just thought, like, what is something interesting that I can share? I've made a lot of mistakes on building. I'm proud to say it, right? Like I'm proud to have gone down this journey that led to me making the mistakes. And I know that there's others that are making the mistakes at this time. And if there's something that I can do to help for others not to make these mistakes, then fantastic. The startup community is one for the better. That's something that I could share, something that I knew that can build some community around it, which is important for me. So I thought I'll give something to the community so that when the time comes, I can also ask for something, which is the support on launches. So that's concretely like the thought process around it. In terms of how it's been going, that has also gone super well. A lot of DMs that are not seen on the comments of people being very happy about this and that they are following every day. And I guess like that's the only thing I need to keep going. It is tiring. It takes longer than Paula, I know you're an influencer now.
Don't say that.
It takes longer. Yeah, it takes longer than the 3, 4 to 5 minutes that you see. It takes like about an hour and a half a day to think about, to shoot, to edit. But it is what it is. We've gone down this path, and we're going to keep going.
That's wow, that's amazing. That's like a big commitment. An hour and a half a day.
Yeah.
No, that's super interesting because it seems very. I've watched like probably half of them. It feels very organic, very natural. It doesn't feel like this is something that's like you put a lot of planning into it.
That's what people want you to think, Sam.
Yeah, of course.
Casual.
I've been tricked.
I mean, you're a content creator, you know this.
Yeah, of course. No, but it's super interesting that you're willing to commit the time. And I guess are you kind of betting big now on content and that building in public?
Yeah, there's two things to it. In all fairness, I didn't know it would take an hour and a half, so I kind of went into it unknowingly. I'm in it now, so I'm going to keep going. The second thing is it does kind of fit in well with what we're doing, right? Like I do believe that I can start spicing it up with editing it properly together with Wanda, so that it can evolve into something different. So I think that eventually this series, my goal is that it will evolve into maybe a little bit of a different production, and I will also be able to highlight Wanda through it, while also I will have built some community behind it all this time.
Yeah, eat your own dog food.
Exactly.
That makes sense. I mean, but yeah, it's pretty crazy, like this fine line. What I think a lot about, so for the audience, I do like some very inconsistent TikToking and Instagramming with video, and I'm always like tempted to want to use more AI tools and like want to use everything that's out there, but it is such a learning curve, and to like make that good, it takes longer than just pointing the camera at your face. So it's like we're at a funny moment right now, and maybe that will change once we have Wanda, but we're at a funny moment right now where I'm like, using an AI tool now, even though it'd be so cool, would cost me then 3 hours, and I do not have 3 hours. So I'm just gonna share a quick insight and be done with it. So
Yeah,
it's like an interesting cusp.
I'm totally with you. And Paula, if I may say, congratulations on huge success on your socials so far. It's very cool to be seeing that. And honestly, the insights that you're sharing, I told you this as well a couple of days ago, the insights that you're sharing for people outside our bubble that know what's going on in tech space, what are the startups, it's super, super useful, right? Like I have so many friends that keep asking me, but like I don't know as much as you, keep asking me like what they should be looking at. I remember even Vicky, before she joined 11 Labs, we were looking at like what are AI startups, and we were depending on people like you. I remember actually I was checking Ben Lang back there, that shared like top 20 startups to join, and I love that you're doing that, Paula, for a different part of in a different channel, which goes to different people as well.
Yeah. Thanks, but this is about you.
But this is perfect. Now, what's your tag? We're gonna like clip this up, put it out there, get everyone following you. I'm a big fan of your content. It's great.
It's really super cool. I always get out the popcorn when the 48 mistakes hit.
Very happy to hear.
Do we have, Seb, a minute or so more, or
I think so. Yeah, I'm conscious we're like 2 minutes over time, Dimi. Have you got a couple more minutes? Because we've got more questions if you're around.
Yeah. Happy to stick around, Seb.
Amazing. Let's do it. I wanted to talk. You recently hit $2 million ARR, which is just an amazing feat. So congratulations on that. I wanted to talk about like, what do you think is going to take you to that next milestone? And do you think it's going to be, can you see the waiting list for Wanda already starting to, or can you imagine it converting and getting you to 5 million, 10 million? What does that kind of roadmap look like?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for the kind words, Seb. To be completely transparent with you, the way that we view this is that this is very much just the beginning, and that's kind of the reason why I was so happy, or so, wanted to be transparent. Like I was okay in being transparent with these numbers. We basically view anything that we've done until now with audio as our starting ground, and from this point on, it's where we're taking off with video. So it's actually easy to answer your question because it touches on everything that we've been saying until now, right? Which is the way to growth here is like us evolving into becoming a video platform. And then in terms of next exact steps, we were joking before, but like we genuinely do want to make Wondercraft or Wanda the home of launch videos.
Yes.
We think that there's a lot going on right now, and we want all of the startups to be creating. We actually have someone joining the team that has been building we basically hired someone that has been doing launch videos just for that intent. So that's one. Apart from that, of course, like just creating ads. What is a launch video at the end of the day? It's an ad. So creating ads
Very fair.
For companies, and generally going a little bit for that SMB, a little bit of PLG growth to begin with, playing big on X and LinkedIn. And we have some other parts in our growth in our GTM playbook right now that are going to be our immediate strategy. And following that, in 2026, we're going to start entering the enterprise space as well.
Amazing, very
Cool.
exciting.
I have one more. I have one more. I have to get off my chest. One more question. What is the next thing after launch videos? Because if my whole Twitter feed is launch, am I just gonna watch launch videos all day, or is there the next iteration? And do you have a prediction what it is?
Oh, that's so interesting. I haven't thought about that. Obviously, I would want it to just stay at launch videos so that everyone can keep creating Wanda style videos. Look, honestly, unfortunately, my view is pessimistic on this one. I think that we are a little bit in a bubble right now. It's very easy for people to be starting. There's a lot of capital going on, and it's easy for people to be spending that capital on launch videos, or some of it. And I feel like that's not going to continue. Hopefully it does, but like if the past is any indication of the future, there won't be as many startups in 26, if not 26, 27. And as a result, things will start switching a little bit to going back to like FDVCs, solopreneurs, and solopreneur, like, and yeah, just build in public a little bit more rather than having these high production launch videos. That's kind of like how I see things will play out. Again, I don't like this future. I just think it's likely the most probable one.
But to be honest, like, even if it's not the launch video, I think video itself is here to stay. I think for you, whatever, today it's the launch video, tomorrow maybe it's the retention video, where it's a lot more about let's really build the community, let's get people to use this in the long run, and let's not just launch it.
Exactly that. Exactly. So, the video is here to stay. There's no question in my mind. There's no question that video is the language of the internet. And Paula, what you're doing exactly that. Like you're going viral because you're putting a medium that many people see in text, but you're putting it into video and in digestible format. So, everyone needs to be creating videos. Some people find it a lot easier to be in front of the camera, some not. Some need creative assistance, and that's kind of like where we're stepping in to help here.
Yeah, I love it.
Amazing.
So cool.
Well, Dimi,
Can't wait.
you.
How many days till Wanda?
4 weeks. 4 weeks. 15th of October.
Okay. So
we have a big. If I can plug one final thing,
Yep.
On the 15th of October, we have this grand finale, which is going to be similar to this live stream. These 10 people that we've selected from our user base are going to be creating our launch video. We've asked them they got access to Wanda, and they're going to be creating the launch video for us. And there's $25,000 on the line for the winner. And we have 4 judges that are all big in the creator space that will assess on that day who will win that $25,000 based on the 10 videos that they've created. And you can actually vote today on wondercraft.ai/challenge for the winner. They all have videos there. Feel free to check it out and attend that grand finale. It's going to be epic to see who's going to win that big prize.
No way, that's so cool. So you can see all 10 videos right now on your website?
Only 7 of them.
7.
We're releasing one contestant each day, and we're at the day 7 right now.
No way. Well, I'm definitely going to check them all out. That's really cool. And then you're going to be live streaming the judging panel. Super interesting. I think that's
let's put that let's share that somewhere for people to
for sure.
check out.
Yeah. That's super cool. I'll definitely check it out and talk about it. It's really interesting.
Amazing. And Seb, congrats to you as well. You're doing great things. Love the fact that you're Europe focused. Go Europe. I'm based out of London, in case that wasn't clear. And obviously very big fan of everything that's going on in Europe. Some awesome stuff all around. Amazing day yesterday as well with Sana Labs getting acquired. It's just so cool to be seeing a lot of activity, both in Europe and in acquisitions. And Seb, a big fan, big supporter. Keep going.
No, thank you, man. Likewise, yes. It's never been so exciting, I think, in European tech. And I just love talking about it and posting about it on LinkedIn. So, living the dream. Dimi, thank you so much for joining us.
So good having you.
Yeah, we're going to be watching, we're going to be sharing, we're going to be voting on those videos. But yeah,
Thanks, guys.
looking forward to Wonder going live.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you too, Demi.
Bye, Paula. Good morning.
Bye bye.
Very cool. I'm like buzzing to watch those videos because I really want to see.
Yeah.
I want to
Same.
see like the quality of Wonder in real life and see the launch videos that people are creating.
Honestly, yeah. Demi also shared, so he's creating so much value. He shared a list on X yesterday with like the best content creators for launch videos he's found.
No way.
So sort of who's behind which launch video. So maybe we should share that link as well, which is
That
just
is
a
so
gold mine.
interesting. I definitely need to follow him.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I almost think that what he's doing now, sort of like running a very live public competition, is almost like that next version of the launch videos. You know, like it's becoming an increasing number of startups are using that as a sort of, it's almost like a long form engagement piece as opposed to a launch video which people watch for like 2 minutes and it goes viral. These competitions are now becoming the way to capture an audience and get them bought in for like 4 weeks. And I'm speaking to other people who are doing it in terms of hackathons, right? It's like a virtual hackathon and they're putting content out every day or every couple of days about updating people. But that seems like a really interesting, like the meta at the moment.
It's like, isn't it funny how, we took the Super Bowl ad and made it the launch video in tech, and now we're taking Dancing with the Stars, but making it tech. And all these things seem to work similarly well as the sort of sitcom pop culture original.
Yeah, I mean, especially as people are just like changing their attention from TV to like scrolling on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Yeah,
it just becomes the new format. It's so interesting.
It's really like, we should do an exercise, Seb. We should like go through TV and be like, what were the hot concepts of the last 10 years and just adapt them to tech, because there's usually a reason why they were hot and had a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, did you ever watch Traitors? I think it was in the UK, but also in Australia. But it was essentially a program where like there were two people who were in charge of like killing all the other contestants, and the contestants had to figure out who those contestants were. Right, and it was a big game of like who you can trust and trying to get to the bottom of it, and they had to vote people out and they had to, whatever. But then that was essentially like Among Us, right? It was like Among Us, the game that popped off during COVID, and then everybody was streaming themselves playing Among Us. And it was exactly what you were talking about. It was like a huge TV program, a huge game, and then the tech community and streamers were then streaming themselves playing the game, and the game was a version of a TV program. So I think that could be super interesting. Like, what concept can you take, short form it, clip it, do it on videos, and do it for tech?
I think it's honestly, there's probably more analogies coming in that direction.
100%. But he was right to talk about Sana. I mean, Sana, that news yesterday was massive. I think it was $1.1 billion cash.
What? Yeah. Yes. And I mean, their last round was a Series B, right? So they must have been well under that valuation, it seems to me.
I think their last valuation was $500 million, and that was
500
less than a year ago.
October. Yeah, exactly.
October.
Yeah, with NEA.
Yeah, exactly. And all cash as well.
It's crazy. Have you heard any additional intel on this?
Nothing at all. Just what I've like seen from social media and like, just people talking about it. But it's interesting. You always do get some people who are slightly negative about it. Like when I spoke about it, people were saying, it's a shame to see a big European company acquired by another US company. But okay, I think we have got Gochi. Are you here? Have we got you? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yes, two things. That's right.
Can you turn your video on the other one? Is that all right?
I think we need your video on the other one. Do we need the audio on the other one, Seb?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Also the audio.
All right, I think we've got you. Are you still getting echo, or you're all right?
Oh no. Wait, I'll mute myself.
I think you may still be muted on video. Are you able to unmute there?
Sure.
Because essentially
All
the
good
video
now?
is a live stream, and then this is the Riverside is the podcast one. But
Love it.
all right, we
Technology.
are. I've been doing this for weeks, and it is still confusing.
Yeah.
But it's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, why don't you just kick off, give us a quick introduction to who you are and what you're building?
Sure. So my name's Goethe. I'm from Belgium originally. Been living in the UK now for about 7 years. And I'm building a company called Pelego. Basically, it came out of a personal pain point of mine, which was really expensive price of textbooks. So when I was going to university, I'd spend like, $200-300 on a book. I'd read 2 chapters of a book and never use it again. And I noticed that all my friends, they would download content illegally, like piracy, or buy secondhand books. So yeah, whilst I was at uni, I had a small business which I sold, and I've been doing Pelego ever since. Kind of 7 years on, we've raised just over $90 million. We're about 130 in the team. We're active in 191 countries, and we've kind of been branded by the press as the Netflix or Spotify for books. So essentially, you pay £12 a month here in the UK, and you get access to millions of books.
And it's amazing. Like, I was having a look at the website, and I thought this is an amazing thing right there. Like, and the pain points that you were just talking about, which is the pain point that every student at university has experienced. And then, there's almost like the secondhand marketplace where you'd buy textbooks from people in the year above you, and then you'd sell them on the next year, and they were ludicrously expensive. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is like, how did you manage to get, I guess, like the critical mass required to make this work, where you have enough books or publications on the site that then people are willing to say, okay, this is my like primary source of the information that I need?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, look, the biggest sort of difficulty building a company like Pelego is very much of a chicken and the egg, right? You need to lock down the supply to get on the consumers. And in the early days, I'll be candid, I knew nothing about publishing, nothing about edtech and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the publishers said it was ridiculous. However, to my benefit, this industry is very similar to the music industry, like in the early kind of 2008, 2009. If you think about it, publishers lose about 35% due to the secondhand book market, so students selling secondhand books, and then a further 28% due to piracy. So to publishers, the pitch was, look, we'll create a recurring revenue line where we pay you for all the consumption. We mitigate piracy from happening, and we're creating a more digital, sustainable solution. And also for their gross profits, it's much nicer, right? If you think about it, in your print model, there's a lot of wastage in the supply chain, print, distribution, wholesale, returns. So what's interesting, on a £100 book, the publishers might receive £23 to £25, and the author might only get £4. So what our big pitch to the publishers is cut out all the middlemen, go direct, go pure digital, and it's a much more scalable model.
Well, I didn't realize that the margin is so low for them. Was that did that make it an easy sell, or was there still a lot of like coaching, hand-holding to try and get them to see the vision?
I think it took a bit of time. So like now, fast forward, we've got about 9,600 publishers, over 1.5 million titles. We've got about 4 million on our database. So we've done a really good job on that level. Kind of how I thought about it is, what we've done is we took all the reading lists in the UK, Europe, and the US, and we worked on content coverage. So if I needed to do an intro to venture capital course, these are the 4 books I would require, and we negotiate with those publishers. And then we started to sign global full collection deals. But in the beginning, it was working from a small cohort and then building up from there.
Interesting. Did you pick specific universities and specific courses and just go after that group with those texts?
Yeah, so the way we thought about it was, if we think about it, we might have the chance to talk a bit about our international business and how we think about it, but the main focus was on the language level. So English as a language, which gave us the UK and the US. And in those markets in the UK, we have about 2.3 million students. In the US, we have about 19.8 million students. And then as you know, like in Europe, a lot of students, I studied my undergrad in Italy, all of my courses were in English. So English was the first cohort. And then what we did is we both based it on what are the biggest kind of undergrad subjects. So business, economics, and management is much bigger than veterinary science, as an example. So we'd go after those kind of tranches and then work our way from there.
Got it. Very cool. Very cool.
Mute myself in 2 places. What is sort of your second act here? So do you just go deeper into other languages? Is there, I mean, what you're basically working on in a way is also digitizing education to some degree, taking a lot of these physical books out of that system. How do you think about sort of the next move where you want to go with the company?
Yeah. So if we think about our initial vision was aggregating your textbook material or book material in one beautiful space. The second layer of the vision was how could you build an engagement or learning tools around the content? So with AI, and we hopefully will get to talk about the implications of AI on Perlego, today we've built things like Workspace, so you can aggregate your slides, your notes, your essays all in one beautiful space. The third layer for us is to have collaboration where you could work with your peers and your classmates on that content layer. So really moving away from the Spotify for textbooks analogy and to a marketplace where you can find all your core learning material, people can upload their own content, and then you have a collaborative and like an education layer around it. It's also important to note in terms of our go-to-market, we have a really big D2C business, but we also have quite a big B2B business. So Paula, where are you from, if I may ask?
Germany.
I can't. Oh, nice. Okay,
Sorry,
so
Germany.
like in Germany,
Sorry.
we have quite a few. Nice. So we have quite a few like business schools that buy for all their students, etc. So in your first day of class, you get full access to Perlego, and they basically incorporate that as part of the tuition fees. And then what's really cool is now we started to bring a lot of like best-selling trade titles. So you might get Perlego your first 3 years at university, and then after you'll get access. You might buy it as a consumer after.
Yeah. I would also be like super interested in, because I feel like a lot of self-education that happens on the internet is sort of, you don't really know where that data is coming from. Like, is this actually state of the art for this field, et cetera? So the inventory that you're building up and sort of the potential for summary and like learning on top of it, that sounds so interesting to me in college, but also beyond college, right? When you're not stuck to these physical books, but you can kind of sit on top. Is that something you think about as well?
Yeah, so in October last year, we launched one of our latest products, which we call Research Assistant. Essentially, this uses AI in 2 layers. We've built a semantic search with RAG on top, so you can ask any question in Perlego. So let's say the implications of interest rate in the VC market, and it will generate a beautiful 200 to 300 word answer. But unlike other providers, you have all the sources and the material in there, and then you can go straight to the book. And now a product that's coming out in the next few weeks is Talk to Books, the ability to ask questions and tutor and work with your book, which is really cool to help for your learning. So yeah, now that you have the content layer, you can build all these tool set layers on top, and that's really where we're seeing a lot of engagement and a lot of growth in the business essentially.
I mean, I think the natural next question is how does that work together with the LLMs in the long run? Obviously, you or your publishers are sitting on a lot of training data as well. Do you know how the publishers think about that, or how do you think about it?
Yeah. So we need to be really careful from that perspective. And you might have seen there's some recent lawsuits from Meta, Anthropic, who essentially scraped pirated books. There are about 460,000 books that were scraped to train the LLM models. Now, Perlego can do any form of trading in a closed environment, which stays on our ecosystem, but we are not allowed to train or sell that data to external providers. Some publishers have done direct deals, but what I noticed is the majority of the publishers are reticent to do so. And right now, the first phase is more lawsuits claiming back, the IP that was infringed. But I'm not allowed to sell or do deals, with other providers. But I've got all this great stuff on my side that I can leverage and use. And essentially, because one thing to note is we pay back royalties to our publishers. We pay a rev share back to them. That's a critical component. Is we pay for all consumption, both when you're training in our models, but also when you're consuming the content as a general reader.
Okay, so there's also on your cost side, it's really like based on what people are using and consuming.
Yeah, so the way we pay back, our royalty model is based on consumption and the value of the content. Essentially, an introduction to German history book might be worth less than an introduction to Belgian history book. So my book would be a bit more premium, as an example, and I get a bit more of the payments back,
Thanks for that.
I'm joking. I just,
I know.
Seb, I couldn't pick on Seb, so yeah.
No, that's super interesting. So yeah, you've kind of got access to build the models on top of the data sets that you've got, but do it in a compliant and a legal way, which actually it feels like could give you a huge advantage over those sort of like generalist LLMs. Do you see that being the direction that I guess like education goes in? I think one of the first AI things that I ever built was an Ask Aristotle AI bot, and it was
Nice.
A bot just solely trained on Aristotle's works, and that was just because you could generally kind of find them without any sort of, they were out in the world, and it was just for fun. And it was just like, oh, could you create a version of Aristotle just trained on his text, and what would he say if I'm in a moral conundrum? Do you see that kind of being the future of the business and of education in general, where you can have these almost like bots or LLMs to answer really specific questions about academic texts and areas?
Yes and no. So will Pelego, try and compete against the OpenAIs of the world? I don't think so. But where there's a huge opportunity is to do it on a course or subject level. So you could take all the philosophy books and then you can train and learn off all the, hundreds of thousands of philosophy books we have. That is something that's really exciting and that we're looking into. I'm not sure of the applications yet. So the way I think about it is you have general search. You'll then have search or training on a subject level, and then you'll have in a book level. And because you read these 3 books, I can recommend those 2 books, etc. For now, we've focused on search, study tools, and then we're also going to do what we call talk to books, and that's the 3rd layer. The subject layer is a bit more complex, and the reason for that is it's a silly thing, but like some people's perception of this philosophy book might be against another one. So how do you balance and how do you think about the hallucinations from that perspective, which adds a bit more complexity and, something we're testing and playing around with.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That was kind of why I wanted to build this agent, because I was like, I don't want hallucinations. I don't want other people's opinions, but maybe I want to find a good quote about what Aristotle thinks the good means or whatever.
And that you will be able to do in Pelego in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's really cool. I can, as a student, you could really see the use cases if you were looking for specific quotes to back up your argument and you haven't done the full reading recommended by your tutor. What's your take on like AI in general impacting and changing education? Do you think it's going to be something that fundamentally disrupts the way we educate our children? Do you see it as like a tool? What's your kind of overall take?
Yeah. So what is the question? Do I think AI is going to completely disrupt sorry, could you repeat that in a bit more detail? Sorry.
Yeah, I guess we're sort of in this transition phase where students are now using AI across the board, but it feels like the curriculum or the way that we test students hasn't changed, despite them having access to these new tools and these new models. Do you think the way that we are educating and assessing children should change?
The short of it is yes. If I think about my own business, which is more higher education and professional, one thing that's really interesting is, I'm not sure if you've got, I noticed you guys started up and I'm sure you're getting applications to join and you probably get all these applications and they're all AI written and it's just like, oh wow, there's no originality to anything anymore. What I do think is AI can probably help in 3 main ways. One, personalization. The way you, Seb, learn is very different to the way I learn. And I think there's a huge opportunities to create more gamification, more adaptive learning, that you could learn faster and me less fast, as an example. So number 1, personalization will be really good. Number 2, when I look at the education space as a whole, one of the biggest bottlenecks or fragments is actually you as a professor, as a student, you're very time poor, right? And so can AI help you drive efficiencies from that perspective with automated grading or maybe like student progress plans, etc. And then I think the third one for me, like it's a big thing, but like on Pelego today, there's a huge push towards accessibility. So we use premium AI voices where you can listen to all the books on the go. And if we think about the audiobook market as a whole, only 4% of books are made available digitally. But because we have all these books in the background, you can now listen to all those books. So again, I just think, there's so many cool things you can do about making it more accessible with text to speech or, real-time translations, those kind of things. So those are my 3 things that I'm excited about. However, I do want to reiterate, I'm seeing people are learning much less and just using ChatGPT for everything. And that just as a macro trend, I'm a bit more worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely a growing trend, like an overall pushback against higher education. It feels like there's a lot of people are now advocating to skip university, and I think there's a part of that is how much easier it's becoming with AI tools, and how the assessment criteria hasn't changed.
So, did you go to university, if I may ask?
Yeah, I was in Durham, in northeast
Nice.
England.
Nice. I've heard that's a very nice university.
It's lovely. It's like a very quaint town, very small. It's like the type of university you'd like your child to go to, because it's like known for its being safe and boring. What about you?
But so I studied in Bocconi and then Cambridge. But basically, what I'm trying to say is education, at the end of the day, it's about an experience, right? Do I think I got the value of my money from going to Bocconi and spending X amount? No. But it's going to come down to two things in the future. One, the quality of the classes and the experience you have as a student. And, I really think it's been very formative to create great friendships and things like that. And that is something I would place a lot of money on. Do I use my degree in my day-to-day business? Not much. But I think the perception of education probably will change as an experience more than, because you can learn everything online. And candidly, everything I've built at Pellego, be it raising money, etc., you pretty much learn it on the go, right? So I think, we're going to see a huge shift around higher education in the next 10 years. And it's going to be much more like, what is my value for money?
Yeah, absolutely. Super interesting.
And that way, it's great because you can bleed into the further adult life, because it's not about just using the textbooks while you use them, then selling them to the next person, but actually using them to get good answers and self-educate, maybe also beyond those formative years.
Yeah. Lifelong learning is the biggest trend in education, and we see this with our own users. You finish your university degree and then you might want to read the CFA or the GMAT book or a book on HR policies, etc. And so what's interesting is a lot of our B2B clients are buying Pellego for their employees and stuff. So that is another trend, is I think you won't just study once anymore. You'll reskill and upskill during your career, like maybe 3-4 times. So that's another thing I think will change.
Amazing. Well, look, I think we're out of time. I'm cautious. But thank you so much for joining us.
Great
It's been
to meet
great
you.
chatting.
My pleasure.
Super exciting what you're building. And we'll be following along.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
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 Very cool. Super interesting.
Yeah, it's
model.
another very interesting space.
Yeah,
Muted, no.
very cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had this discussion around sort of AI in education recently with a couple of friends, and some people who are still in high school who I know are seeing a bifurcation where some very, very ambitious people will when learning for tests and stuff, not use AI at all, to basically force themselves to really think and really write an essay themselves and do all of that sort of annoying work, because they're I'm going to use AI my whole life, 100%, but I want to learn some of the basics of these things myself, because the generations before me were able to do that and now have that understanding underlying their use of AI. And I don't want to use AI as a crutch for everything, which I found really interesting, because you could take the other stance and say, well, if you're always going to use AI, you should learn to work with AI in the best way, and the rest doesn't matter. So I think
really
it's very,
interesting.
very interesting, discipline almost, how you see that.
Yeah, it's a bit like handwriting or something. It's like learning how to write with your hand. Super important at school. You've got to do it really, seen as something you've got to learn how to do and do well. Despite the fact that 99% of everything that I write is typed. So it's sort of should you just start teaching people to type with a laptop from the age of 6 as opposed to writing with a pen? Interesting. And I feel like there's going to be this sort of purist approach. And it's a bit like that in content, right? Some people won't use AI at all for their content because they think that proper purists don't want to use these tools, which they think they've sort of leveled the playing field. So it's very hard to get alpha if you're just all using the same tool set. Interesting.
That's true.
Yeah, interesting that there are kids out there who are willing to do the hard work and the grind and not take the shortcuts.
Yeah, You have to be a special type of nerd, I think,
Yeah.
to do
like,
that.
yes. Yeah, those kids are going to be all right either way.
Yeah, exactly. Those kids who are even thinking about this at 15 years old, they're going to be fine.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it is an interesting question as to like, yeah, what do you also like? What's your stance on it towards your own kids one day? You know, because for the first few years, they're not making that decision themselves.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? It's hard to imagine what education is going to be like. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's so strange. I've got 2 daughters who are fortunately 1 and 2, so they are some way off having to interact with like the open AIs of the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting.
But they're gonna interact with it before my kids because I don't have any yet. So
Yeah,
you need to
it's true. And
start thinking about it.
but it's also things like, speaking to other parents who do things like AI books, tools like that where you can create completely original stories about your own kids and their own adventures. And, I saw like a viral video of somebody who turned all of his children's doodles and put them into like video models, and the video models created all these creatures that this like 4-year-old had doodled, had now become these creatures on video with their own stories, and how he was actually teaching his kids to then do that themselves, to take a doodle that was like a horse with 7 legs or something and put it into a VEO model and give it some prompts and create like a short video and a story about this creature that they've just created. Which I think, to your point, is like if you equip your children with these tools, by the time that they're like 15, they're going to be amazing at using them, and they're going to be so much better than anybody else. But it sort of just feels like the purist in me like wants to keep these things away from my own kids for as long as possible.
Yeah. I understand that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think it's a super interesting business that he's built and is doing really, really well. Next up, we've got Saba, CEO and co-founder of Vidio, another sort of like video generation tool, which they had like a really interesting journey. I think they were bootstrapped for the first few years. They got to $7 million ARR without raising any money. And then I think they went straight into like a Sequoia-led Series A, and I think that's kind of all they've done. I think that's my understanding of the backstory. That it's like bootstrapped to a Sequoia round Series A. It's sort of like the dream. I don't know, like that, like bootstrapped to 7 million, then get Sequoia to lead your round, and that was in 2022. I think they've grown to $40 million of ARR, but they haven't raised anything since. So very cool business, doing really well.
Yeah. Super, super exciting. I mean, I've tested all these different tools and models, and I really, really think Veed is doing an amazing job. So very, very excited to meet.
Yeah, and it feels like a very hot company at the moment.
Yeah. I do wonder, I'm really interested in the question what he learned from initially bootstrapping, because I do think when you don't have that sort of external funding velocity, and like, the way Jimmy said, like you don't have the money to do a launch video, don't have like all these things to create hype.
Yeah.
What does that sort of do to the fundamentals? I could imagine a lot of good things, but would love to learn from what he's learned.
And also, like what his plan for the future is in terms of raising. Once you've got to 7 million ARR without funding, and then you are given funding, it's almost like being given like a jetpack. And like, I don't know how much, it is his ambition to stop there. Now that he's hit 40 million, with the bootstrap mentality, and he raised $35 million, which is probably a huge amount of money generally, but also for somebody who's only bootstrapped to date. So hearing like, does he want to do a Series B, C, D, E, F, G, or has he still got that mindset of, no, okay, we raised that money to get us to the next level, but now we're aiming for profitability and we'll never raise again? I mean, that would be interesting to go into.
Yep, totally. Let's do it.
We also had another unicorn this week. Did you see Nothing, the hardware company? Became a unicorn on Monday. They raised like $300 million or $200 million, which I thought was really cool. Like 2 unicorns in 2 days across Europe.
Where's Nothing from?
It's a strange one. I think Carl Pei is the founder. He's got like a Swedish background, but he built the company in London. But I think he moved to Sweden from somewhere else. So it's a very international company. And I think he's even actually might be headquartered in like the Channel Islands or something. So there's like questions about where it is essentially actually headquartered. But hello.
What? No, sorry.
No, I was going to say, Saba, can you
we
hear
have
us?
Ollie.
Hello?
I don't.
All right, we are back. Thank you for joining us, Saba. It is absolutely amazing to have you. There's very exciting stuff going on with Veed at the moment. We are very excited to get into all of it. But before we do, why don't you just give us a super quick intro into who you are and what you're building?
Sure thing. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'm Saba. I'm CEO and co-founder of Veed. Veed is a video creation platform. We're headquartered here in London. We've got about 10 million monthly users and 4 or 5 billion videos created every month through the platform.
Amazing. You're absolutely killing it. 10 million users is insane.
And who are those users? So if I don't know Veed, which I do because I love using video tools, but imagine I don't, who should be using you or why should they be coming to Veed?
Sure. So, Veed really focuses on making really great talking head videos. Anyone that's got a message wants to share it, and video is definitely the best way to do it right now. So most people use us for marketing and social media. They want to make that talking head video, make it super engaging, great subtitles, or potentially they want to generate a video to do a very similar thing as well. So if you're in marketing, want to get a message out there, that's definitely Veed is the place to go. And the other thing that we focus on a lot is like simplicity and like ease of use. So I think so many video creation platforms, even getting the AV set up for this, for example, can be a little bit complex, and we want to kind of reduce that barrier and allow more people to be able to do it.
And so it's both on the editing side and on the Gen AI side for talking heads.
Exactly. Recording yourself can be a bit daunting, and sometimes having AI to do that for you is actually quite useful. It also allows us to allow anyone to create a video who's got an internet connection, access to a laptop. They don't need to be on camera. I think that's quite important for, making it more and more accessible.
Super
Yeah.
cool. And what's like kind of the hottest feature right now? What are people wanting to do in the space of talking heads right now the most?
Honestly, it's really hard to answer that question. Often when you're speaking to your users and you're trying to work out what's the next feature, what should we invest in, what should we build, they don't know what they don't know. So often the things that they ask for is a better version of what you've got, which isn't quite bad. It's not super useful. So often what we have to also do is spend half our time doing R&D, for example, and kind of thinking, hey, what's next? What could really improve these flows? Something we launched literally on Monday was a video generation model for making talking heads. That went crazy. Like the launch, we've never seen anything like it. The videos that went out on social, for example, was like 2 million views in 24 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a good example of, hey, people don't know what they want always, so we have to do a little bit of experimentation. But that's how we see it.
And then when they see it, they know. When they see it, they know that they wanted it.
From the notes on what we're going to talk about today, this is definitely later in what you sent me. But I think there's two ways to look at it, right? There's like capturing demand, which is more about kind of, hey, someone's got a problem or a job to be done. How can we capture that demand that people already have? But then there's also generating demand, showing something cool that they might not even know they want, but something that can fit into a workflow that they're doing. You have to kind of invent it for them and show them, hey, we can do this, and this could help your workflow.
And has that changed over time? Like, have you focused in the initial stages on servicing that demand, and now you're trying to push the frontier out? Or have you always trying to be like, okay, let's build something that people don't know what they want yet?
I used to have this saying, so I think YC have this thing called make something people want. It's like a famous mantra, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of adjusted it when we started the company to make something people search for. And I was very obsessed with like capturing demand that kind of was already existing. And it was really powerful actually, because it also informed our roadmap. Like we'd kind of build the next feature based on how much search traffic there was for it, because that kind of indicated the demand that there was for it. So that's kind of how we started. It was very kind of scientific in a way, and it was like a process. And I think, when you're number one for not every single search term, but like if you Google AI video, we should come up number one. Where do you go next? That's when the generating demand comes in. I think that's kind of where we are as a company now, and kind of how we're thinking about marketing as well.
Very cool. And is this, what you're talking to, what you're kind of alluding to, is that Fabric 1.0?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And can you touch a bit more about like what that is and where it's come from?
Sure. So, as I said earlier, most people use Veed for making talking head videos, but always being on camera or hiring influencers to make videos for you can be a little bit, time consuming. If we also look at like the most popular videos that people are creating with things like VO3, they're just talking videos. Like people love talking videos. So we thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could make a model that specialized in doing exactly that? It was designed specifically for talking videos, and the way that we kind of thought about the speed of the model, the quality, and how much it costs for us to generate, we were very hyper focused on building it to be very performant and very cost effective, so we can roll it out to our user base. So Fabric One is basically a diffusion based video model that kind of takes an audio stream and then lip syncs that with the emotion to the image that you give it. For example, if I was to have an audio of myself whispering, the model would actually make me lean in and whisper. If I was shouting, it would make me very animated. So it's an incredibly powerful model, and it's we think it's going to be really important for how people create videos. And I'll give you a really, really interesting use case. I was on holiday last week. The team wanted to make a video for the launch. I literally just sent them an audio stream. An audio on WhatsApp, and they made a really high quality video of me for the launch, and I was never even there, and the quality is incredible. So yeah, super cool.
What is needed in terms of input to make that happen? Obviously of you, they'll have a lot of footage. What does the average user need to do that?
Well, it depends if you want to have a fine-tuned version of yourself, or you just want to use a stock character. So the easiest way to do it is go to the site, click a pre-created character that we have, and then that's mapped to a voice. If you want to do one of yourself, it's just an image of yourself and an audio.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Very
Super
cool.
Easy than being on camera.
Super interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was chatting with a friend about this earlier. I think we're moving to a world where AI is a new camera, and people aren't going to be super I don't know, like right now it feels like there's AI content and there's non-AI content, right? Like they're two different things. I think that world is going to merge. I think people are not going to be as, you know, scrutinized that much.
Yeah, we were just talking to a previous guest about this, how, I mean, Seb and I both love to create content, how today we're still in a weird spot where sometimes just pointing the camera at yourself is easier than going the AI route if you're not so familiar with the tools, because we're so used to that. And so that's where like there's a divide, but how do you think those two sides will kind of grow together exactly?
Well, I'm the same as you. I've got no problems whacking my camera out and just rambling on, and I'm not, you know, I don't care that much about how I look on camera. I just, you know, get it done. But so many people don't. Like, I think more people don't than do, right? So yeah, I think you know, in the next 12 months, we're probably just going to see a world where like you can fine-tune yourself very easily with a model and then put yourself in different environments, backgrounds based on what you need, message you need to share. And often with like talking heads and AI, it's often seen within like the business use case in L&D, but I think we're going to start seeing it much more in like marketing and on people's websites and on social media as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've recently started doing TikTok, you know, and I've always done content creation on LinkedIn, which is always like written. That's always been the thing that I like doing. But now what I'm doing is I'm taking my top performing LinkedIn posts and I'm recording a video of myself and slapping it on TikTok with like a green screen or whatever. But for me, that feels like a perfect use case where if I could just give it the script of my LinkedIn posts, I wouldn't even have to film myself, right? I could just, you know, use Veed, use my own talking head, and then just have it created for me.
Basically, yeah. I think we should also like not think that this is like a, you know, you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a blog post about, you know, scaling Europe, for example, and it would do an average job to it, and no one's going to want to read it. It's similar to video. You could just churn out video after video after video, but like I think creation, right, and like editing really starts becoming the craft to make things important. That's always going to be the case. Always going to be the case.
Yeah,
I think taste and creation becomes incredibly important. Very
if
important.
you can just create anything, then really picking and choosing what you should create becomes more important.
So it's easier, right? It's easier, but then like that storytelling aspect or that creation aspect is the thing that really makes your content different.
And how are you thinking about content creation and storytelling in, you know, I guess your own journey, your own growth? Has that been something that you've tried to leverage a lot of to kind of get you to that 10 million users?
Yeah, I mean, we spent, which was quite weird, a long time, and we still do, making YouTube videos. It's been a really big part of our growth journey. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. And often there's some things when you want to get an answer to it, you want to kind of just read that answer. But a lot of the times, if it's using software, you want to see it being done in front of you so you can mimic it, right? So we've been plugging away at YouTube for years and have amassed about 300,000 subscribers across a couple of channels. And those, you know, channels do over 1 million views a month. And it's been really important because when you're kind of, you know, say, for example, someone wants to trim a video or crop a video and they want a tutorial, hopefully a Veed video comes up in that journey. But you're not just educating them how to do it, you're also activating the user at the same time. So it's a very powerful mechanic. And yeah, trying to eat our own dog food there as well and, you know, use our own tools.
Speaking of like growth hacks and getting to where you are now, you bootstrapped at the beginning, correct?
Correct.
We would love to learn a little bit more about that because, you know, there's a lot of capital in the market, a lot of founders raised before having anything. That's almost controversial to start with bootstrap. We would love to learn why you made that decision and what you think that taught you.
So I first want to be very clear. Originally, it wasn't a decision that I had it. You know, it was like there was no other option. You know, when we started the company, I think we were just very scrappy. And when we tried to raise funding, it wasn't the right time. We tried to get into YC, that didn't work. And we were just a bit like, you know, let's just not go that route, basically. Let's just go to the route where we're making like $10,000, $20,000 a month. And this becomes our jobs, right? That was kind of the goal. But the company grew incredibly quickly. It was like, I mean, for then, like now, a company growing quickly is like 100 million ARR in 6 months, right? But like back then it was like 1 million in the first year, got to 6 million in the next year, and it was growing incredibly quickly. So we didn't really need capital at that point. When you start, generating revenue, being able to attract users at a really, fast and efficient rate, it just really works. So it's interesting though, because a lot of what we learned then is kind of still in our DNA. We're still very capital efficient. We're pretty much a profitable company. Like, we don't earn any money. So it's that DNA has kind of always stayed within us.
And is that affecting how you're looking at the future? Are you thinking about raising again down the line, or are you happy being kind of at that sort of like profitable level?
I'm very happy being there. Yeah, it's good to control your own destiny, right? And I think that, I also think that there's a lot of overhead when you have such a large team, communication overhead, innovation overhead, and it's just nice to be able to, be in founder mode, so to speak, and get things done, and like be close to the engineers and be close to the product. And I've really enjoyed it. That said, never say never. You don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, very cool. And when you did raise, you raised from Sequoia, right? That's like, and it must have been so satisfying after like,
Yeah, so we raised from Sequoia probably 3 years ago, and it was a 35 million Series A. It's still the first ever round that we've done, but it's been a great experience, and we really love working with the team there. And I think arguably we've built a much better company because of it as well. We've got way more disciplined as well, I think, and and it's also great for attracting talent and people's believing you. You're kind of like able to have that brand halo Sequoia rub off on you, and people in tech know what you're talking about when you say, that they're your investors. So it's been really good, and it's also, I think, one of the first investments out of the London office as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, somebody told me that, which is which I think is like an amazing success and classic Sequoia to like sort of like hit it out the park on their first one. But what was that process like raising from them? Were you able to go with them and show this like bootstrap journey? Did that story really appeal to them? That sort of like scrappy, scaling fast, but like making it work without the funding. Was that what kind of got them on board? Like, how were you able to convince them?
So I can't say from their perspective, but I think from what I've learned is, if you do the work and your numbers are good, a lot of people will be very interested. I was, because we were kind of bootstrapped, and maybe I felt a little bit, burnt from the experience. I was just posting our revenue on Twitter like every other day. And so it got a lot of attention. And when you can see the growth rates that you're doing month over month, a lot of people start knocking at your door. So I think a lot of people knocked at the door. And also I think there's a part of, I was like, I ain't doing this, I ain't raising. And I think that also worked as well. So I think, just grow, show you've got some good numbers, and I think a lot of things fall into place,
Yeah, very cool. It's a great story. I wanted to ask about your recent hire of, I think, Pete Steinauer, if I'm pronouncing that right. He's like an Apple vet. I think he's been there since 1992 in the video application space. What was the thinking? Like, why have you chosen to bring someone like that on as CTO? And how did you convince him to leave a company that he's been at for 30 years to come and join your mission?
Sometimes the stars just align. I'm a believer in the world just kind of aligning for you sometimes, and I think that was definitely one of those cases. I think building Veed is definitely more on it's technically a really challenging product, and there's a lot of technical expertise in the depths of videos when you start looking at codecs and transcoding and all this good stuff. And how do you structure an org to build these products? There's not loads and loads of information out there about how to do it. So we really wanted to find someone who just knew what they were doing and who'd done it before and could like help and advise the company. Also, if I look at the DNA of the company, we're definitely like the scrappy startup, and that's great, but it's not always great. Sometimes you need a very stable product, right? And you need someone who knows how to architect it in a way. And so we're trying to find people that had experience basically doing this. And obviously we got led to Apple because they've got some of the most popular video creation products in the world. And yeah, as I said, stars really did align, and it's been a great journey working with Pete since he's joined.
Amazing. Yeah. I was looking at his LinkedIn. He's been, I think, in Apple for 30 years, but in video for 15 years, which is, there aren't that many people who have been working on the early days of video on the internet.
I think there's only one person actually and it's him.
Yeah, yeah. It's like an amazing hire. I remember I spoke about it on LinkedIn because we are seeing this trend of, big American tech talent actually coming this way to Europe and actually joining some of the young startups that we're seeing, which is a really interesting trend. But very cool. It's going to be super exciting to see kind of what he
I mean,
brings.
there's a lot of cool things happening in Europe, right? And there's a lot of great advantages for being here. So, I think we're going to see more of it for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe one last question from my side. What is the next iteration? What's the next evolution stage of Veed going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like every other person that's going to say the word AI, but unfortunately, I have to say that just for one main reason. Every single green shoot that we have on every single graph is rooted in AI and generation. I think we're going to be pushing a lot more into creating our own models, but also allowing people to interact with other people's as well. And just really trying to push the boundaries of what you can do with video generation. The demand that we're seeing and the pull from the market is really, really interesting. And I think we're also going to start experimenting very soon. I think next week we're launching our fabric model via an API as well. So let's see what happens to that side of the business. But I think it's really exciting. And I've never, since the launch, there's like 100 people in my DM saying, can I have an API? So having that kind of like pull from the market is normally a good sign. And let's see where we go. Who knows what's around the corner? But look, it's an exciting time to be building right now.
Yeah, definitely. Very excited to see what's next.
No, this is amazing. But Seb, I'm conscious we're just over time. But look, things are obviously going really well for the whole team and yourself over at Veed. It's like super exciting time to be building in this space. We're going to be looking at the releases, using the tools ourselves. I'm going to be like getting on it as soon as I can because it sounds amazing. But look, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we look forward to kind of seeing you grow even more.
Amazing. Hey, appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So great to meet you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
So cool, very, very, very cool. Interesting. We've had like
So awesome.
a very almost like content angle today. Like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of conversations
totally.
about the launch videos, AI generation, which is really interesting. It's just such a hot topic at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm personally obsessed and spend a lot of time in these tools. So I love talking to the founders and seeing the slight differences and who's sort of focusing on what.
And
Exciting.
what's your content strategy? Because I don't follow you on Instagram, but I do follow you on TikTok. How are you like using both platforms? Is it like, you do both? You do one bit of content, you push them out on the same way? Have you found that different content works well on different platforms?
Oh, we
Like-
still have.
What's going on?
Sorry, just 'cause Saba's back on the video.
Oh, he's coming back.
I think you can go. Thank you so much. See you. Bye bye. I'm sorry to the audience. I'm very awkward when I don't know who or where the right place is to talk into.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think, I've always got the live stream up on my laptop because because then you know who's on screen at what time, and that's like the best way of trying to do it. Because I'm not in the video.
No, I know, and then sometimes, what's on the live stream is different from what I'm seeing, and I don't want to be rude to the person I'm seeing. And just ignore them.
Yeah, I think.
In person soon, Seb.
Yeah, for sure.
To your question, I do not have a very strong content strategy. I'm still in the stage of exploring the platforms and just trying to understand the platforms. So that's my main goal right now. If I were to, I see things working and I know exactly what I would have to do and double down on to see more growth. But I also want to limit the amount of time I spend, creating short form video and like creating for the platforms. So I'm very much in like the understanding platforms and understanding where I can like build an audience that I'm close to. That's most important to me. Where do I actually have that conversation with my watchers?
And like, what are you building your audience for, I guess?
Honestly, I don't know yet. I really started because I was like, I can't believe how much time I spend consuming short form video, but I never created. And I think the whole world online will communicate through short form video of some sort, right? I mean, the launch videos are also short form in a way. Maybe they're not short form, but they are short form. And so I just wanted to learn it. And now I'm starting to see traction around like this, you know, around sort of people looking for jobs and wanting to work in the startup arena. And right now I'm just enjoying that I get a lot of messages and people seem to be appreciating it. And I'm just trying to add value, to be honest.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not yet one of those people who are like, I'm doing this and then I'm going to use that audience for something else. It's not my plan yet.
You're just figuring it out, see what value you can add, build the audience, and then see what happens down the line.
Yeah, it's just kind of fun. And what I am definitely seeing, like Instagram, you just have more access to your users, to your audience. So if you write a question in a story, you'll get much more response because on TikTok, everything happens on the For You page, which is an interest graph and not really a follower graph. So it's definitely easy to interact with my audience and to understand what they want. And that makes it fun. Because if you can ask a question like, okay, what city of jobs should I do next? And then you get like 150 answers, then I know the next thing I'm going to do is actually going to add value to people. And that's definitely something I'm finding super exciting to do.
Yeah, I guess you kind of open the conversation up to go both ways. Whereas everyone that I've spoken to about TikTok has said it's not about the audience that you build at all. It's much more content is everything, and like follow count doesn't mean much. It's just your ability to constantly create like high performing and engaging content.
Yep. I think my main learning from short form video overall is it is great, as are many other social platforms, to build trust with people and build this like parasocial relationship where they've seen you before, some of them like you, some of them trust what you say, and that can help you in other ways later on. I think the focus on the follower count, you're right, it really does not mean much, especially not on TikTok. What does mean something is that some people will build that relationship and will trust you and then, work with you in the future on other things maybe.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so early on my TikTok career that I'm not like.
How's that going? Wait, I haven't seen it.
It's going okay. Like I've done it for like 2 weeks. I've had a couple of posts that have ended up getting like, one had like 25,000 views, one had 50,000 views, and I was like quite happy with those. But the rest is sort of just like hovering at.
Is it under Scaling Europe?
I've got Scaling Europe, which is the podcast clips, which is different. Then I've got my own one, Seb Johnson. So I've got 2 TikToks, yeah, and I need to start doing Instagram as well. But I'm not quite. It just feels like so much. 2 TikToks, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify.
I know.
I write 3 newsletters a week. It's like, I think I posted on LinkedIn like 9 times yesterday. It's like,
that is crazy.
So much content.
You're a machine. You're such a machine. I love that.
Yeah.
But I think I would honestly for me, the whole thing is just test stuff out to figure out what platforms you find fun. Because the only platforms that are going to be useful are the ones where you're very consistent over a long period of time.
Yes, yeah, that's it. Like when you commit forever, really, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have got Maximilian Kufner. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Co-founder CEO of Kufner, a Copenhagen-based climate tech that they are. I think what they're called is like carbon utilization. So they are transforming CO2 emissions into like chemicals for like industrial applications, and they're selling that to those kind of industrial companies. super interesting. They raised $40 million last year from Google Ventures and HV Capital. Another, like, you know, it feels like there's so many great startups coming out of the Nordic region at the moment. But I think it's particularly interesting because there's not that, like, climate tech has kind of fallen out of fashion a bit, maybe. I don't know if it's like the US turning against climate, the rise of AI and defense. Sort of feels like climate tech is like not that hot. So I think it's going to be interesting to talk about what it was like raising the money in 2024 in like a very technical, climate-focused industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very excited to learn more. Oh, there he is.
Hello. Hello, Max. How you doing?
Hi, Max.
Hi, I'm here. I'm still trying to figure out, am I in the producer pre-room or are we live?
You are live. Welcome.
Okay.
We are streaming on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and it is great to have you.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation.
No, our pleasure.
Welcome. Great to meet you.
Yeah. Why don't you just give us a quick intro into who you are and what you're building?
Yes, happily. I always like to say I'm by far the least interesting part of my founding team. My other two co-founders are both highly successful scientists and the leaders in our field of gas fermentation and microbiology. So they're PhDs and professors from the Danish Technical University at Copenhagen and from Stanford. I, on the other hand, was a very boring venture capitalist before I took on this job. And we as a company were essentially, we're kind of a hybrid between all sorts of different multidisciplinary technologies. We utilize biotechnology, chemocatalysis, so chemistry, and also computational biology to build a platform that allows us to help industrial businesses convert their waste gases into valuable, clean products. So what that essentially means in practice is there's kind of two different pillars to the business. Pillar one is we built an infrastructure technology where we will co-locate, these are hardware assets, we will co-locate with a large industrial emitter, think like an oil refinery or a petrochemical plant or something like that. We put down these bioreactors, we pump the bioreactors full of CO2 gases and other gases, and we essentially use a fermentation process, right? Just like making sauerkraut or beer or whatever your thing is, just that we ferment carbon dioxide emissions into clean, renewable chemicals that we then sell into industry, either directly to the emitter or via our third-party distribution partners. And then the second part of the business that we built on top of that is the platform where we make a product called acetate, which we can then transform into different products ourselves. But it's also actually a very interesting replacement for sugars. So it's actually, as a biochemical feedstock, has up to 33% better yields than traditional sugar, which is interesting because it allows us to actually improve the unit economics of pretty much all biofermentations downstream from us. And then not making it from sugar, which is incredibly painful from a land mass and land usage perspective, and instead making it from waste CO2. So that's kind of what we do. Happy to answer more questions and tell you more. I can talk about it all day.
Amazing. So just quickly, do you capture the CO2 at source, did you say?
Exactly. So what's different to, like, if you think about, carbon sequestration, for example, or something like that, they'll typically, capture the CO2. They have to scrub it clean. It's the scrubbing the CO2 clean that's a huge pain and really expensive. It's not actually technologically that challenging. It's just an energy cost question. What's great about our process is because it's a biological process, this bug needs to eat CO2 to survive. And so you can pump the gases straight in. So we don't have to clean it up or do any of that kind of stuff. We literally just pump CO2 into the bioreactor with all sorts of different stuff in it. And that's how our process works.
Amazing. And how much CO2 are you capturing and transforming?
Oh, that I actually don't know off the top of my head. I think I wouldn't even try and guess it right now. We have three production sites. So one is already up and running. It's been running for about 1.5 years out in Copenhagen. So we're capturing the CO2 from Copenhagen's leading wastewater facility treatment and turning that into acetate. And then our second project is going live in 1 month and 3 days. That's our first fully scaled commercial project. So, you call that your first of a kind. That's in partnership with Dow Chemical, the world's, one of the world's leading petrochemical manufacturers, as well as Macquarie Infrastructure, who actually have a joint venture that we're partnering with. And then Helm, which is, if anyone here is from Germany in the chemicals industry, it's one of the leading global chemical distribution firms. So that'll be live in about a month. And then we're also building a project out in Norway, where we will be capturing CO2 and making a bunch of different products, plastics, materials, fuels, etc., which will be live next year. So we're already in the commercialization phase, essentially.
Amazing. That's very exciting.
Super cool. I was curious. I saw, if I understood this correctly, that you actually were one of the kind of founding investors, or sort of incubated this company initially when you were still an investor. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? It's super unusual and super interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that come together. One, I worked at a firm called Atlantic Labs, which some of you may know if you've been in the Berlin ecosystem. We started getting very excited about deep tech in around, we always did a little bit of deep tech, but we started getting really excited about deep tech in sort of 2021, late 2021, 22, which was kind of the stuff that I also focused on a lot. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, so I was lucky enough to invest in space companies and rocket companies, and ultimately ended up in sort of life sciences and computational biology. And it's through that work that I met Torbjørn and Alex, who've been working on the IP, the R&D behind our business since 2011. And after 10 years of R&D, they were ready to spin out the company and start the business. And when they came to us and they pitched, well, actually I reached to Torbjørn originally because I was looking at the space. So I pinged him an email. I was like, look, I really like what you're doing. What are you thinking about the company and where do you want to go? He essentially said that he had this this very robust technology, but he wasn't exactly sure how he would go about scaling it up. And we as a firm are always quite flexible in our models. We were quite flexible when I was there, which is I basically had the idea, having been a founder once before. I pitched internally and I pitched to Torbjørn. I said, look, guys, how about I kind of join you part-time? We figure out how to build this company together. And if it works out, it works out. If you and me don't work out, then we'll find you a great CEO and he'll take over the business or help you run the business. And initially at the time, so what happened is we made the pre-seed investment. This is sort of October 2021. And I scaled down my investing activities, and I spent half of my time commuting to Copenhagen and helping Torbjørn kind of figure out what to do, hiring the first hires, developing a strategy for commercialization, all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, I was very happy in my venture capital role, but I got all my best buddies to interview for this job as the sort of commercial co-founder. One of them ended up being a super early, or like the first hire in Europe for OpenAI, so that actually went good for him. But everyone else, I kept saying, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You should do it. And eventually, after about a year or so of this kind of hybrid system, Torbjørn and Alex and I got along so well that they asked me if I wanted to join full time, and that's how we did that. So it was kind of like a one-off situation, but I think that a few other firms have done these kind of models relatively successfully, where the GP or the partner kind of goes in and out of founding companies. And I think for us as a firm at the time, it was also an experiment with seeing how that could work. And I think it's gone well. So yeah, that's a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a really great story. And in the end, that's like the most high conviction investment you can make. Is not just like, here's the check, but here's also the majority of my time. And by the way, now all my time.
And also pretty much all my savings went into the first round as well, personally. So I fought tooth and nail against the LPA to be allowed to also invest personally.
Amazing. That's
amazing.
You actually don't get much higher conviction than that. What's it been like? I mean, like, how does it compare to your role as a VC?
Yeah, it's way less chilled. There's less going to conferences. There's less like professional tweeting that you get paid to do. I jest. I think that as a journey, it's been phenomenal. One of the lucky things about what we've done here is that the technology was already so mature that it's been a pure play commercialization journey. So we didn't have to go through this thing that a lot of deep tech R&D startups, they start at the point of a few brilliant scientists having an idea. And then you actually have to spend sort of 10, 15 years actually commercializing the technology, getting to various proof of concepts. Take biology, for example. There's a very common way to ramp up a biology farm. You'll typically start at like a theoretical concept, then you'll go to what's called the bench top, and then sort of lab scale, pilot scale, demonstration scale, commercial scale, right? These are different sizes of bioreactors, essentially. we started the company, went straight to demonstration scale, right? So this is basically, saving you 5 to 7 years of a typical company in their journey. And so it's really been a function of obviously raising capital, which I'm sure we'll talk about, building commercial facilities, building partnerships, and scaling up the business. And it's not been the whole process of, do we have a technology that works, all that kind of stuff. So it's been very fulfilling. We're, headquartered in Copenhagen, opened an office in Berlin, and about a year ago decided to also open an office in Houston. And so there's been a lot of international travel, and we've done a good job at building great teams on all 3 of those locations. So we're very happy with how things have gone.
How many people are you on the team now?
So I should know this. We're about 40 to 50 full-time employees. And then we have currently on the project, about 50 to 60 contractors working for us in the final stages of the project. One of the great things about the way you've developed the business is that Topco can actually remain relatively lean. So we don't need to hire a huge amount of people to build out additional projects. But we have this kind of very traditional, if you look at an asset or an infrastructure business, we have this traditional Topco asset structuring where everything's in the SPV. So a lot of the headcount scale up for each project will be essentially the operators and the on-site staff that go into the underlying asset SPV.
Makes sense. That's interesting. And what was the rationale about moving or setting up in Houston as well?
Well, this is where I might be quite a bit controversial for this podcast because, I think one of the things we saw relatively early on is that it's pretty hard to build a successful deep tech company in Europe. And it's not really, in our opinion at least, it wasn't so much a regulatory problem. I mean, I have my gripes with the European Union, and I'll use any time I can to say that I think that their policy approach is completely stupid to climate change. But that's actually not the reason we moved to the US. The reason we moved to the US is because we kind of identified about 1.5 years ago when we started making the shift from being a pure play science R&D company to a engineering business that needs to deliver and develop these projects. We realized that the epicenter for engineering talent is not in Europe, it's in Houston. And instead of brute forcing, we did this, we've, to be fair, most of our leadership team, even in Copenhagen, are Americans and come from industries where, biotech in San Francisco or the Bay Area, right? Or engineering in Houston. But we realized that to find the biggest amount of talent density, we had to leave the EU rather than the other way around. Then there are additional things that come on top of that, like permitting is significantly quicker. You can get a permit in Texas in 6 weeks. That'll take you like 9 months in the US and Europe. And there's a bunch of other stuff, but it was really firstly and foremost a cultural thing, where we decided to go to the place where we think there are simply the best engineering talent in the world. And, a lot of young, hungry engineers who have a can-do attitude, which is not something you get in some of the older industrial parts of Germany, which we also looked at.
Yeah. I mean, it's not totally controversial to this show because I'm also in the US right now. So I think we see the benefits of this side as well. But just curious, because you were just pointing to it. What is, if you had to kind of pick out one thing that the European Union towards climate policy should change or should do better, what would it be?
I mean, I think what the European Union generally got. Where do I start? What the European Union generally got wrong is they tried to be very dogmatic about saying these kind of technologies have the right to exist and everything else doesn't have the right to exist. And what that ended up looking like is that, Europe was the front runner with regards to pushing climate regulatory policies down industry's throat to huge detriment. If you look at Germany, historically was the leader in chemical production, and now we don't produce anything anymore. Global leading companies like BASF are shutting down their chemical production in Ludwigshafen because the energy costs simply don't sustain it. But the main problem they did is they essentially said, okay, if you want to build a climate technology business, the only thing we will allow you to do is build a carbon sequestration business. That's the thing where all the climate subsidies go towards. Everything else doesn't really exist. Green hydrogen doesn't really exist. Climate utilization doesn't really exist. And that's because the European Union and the people who make all these academic exercises and spreadsheets in Brussels they didn't think pragmatically about letting a free market operate. They thought, hey, this is the only technology that has the biggest outsized impact on being green, and so we're only going to promote that, and we don't want anything in between. Right now, realistically, if we want to solve anything meaningful on climate, we have to have a big toolbox of different approaches. There'll be companies like ours that utilize technology, that utilize carbon, that vastly reduce carbon outputs, but don't necessarily make it negative or sequester it. Then there'll be green hydrogen, there'll be electrification, there'll be a bunch of stuff. And so Europe essentially set this one policy path into play 10 years ago, and they haven't deviated from it. Meanwhile, the Inflation Reduction Act in the USA, which, by the way, everyone thought would be curtailed through the latest administration, has actually been boomed through it. The Inflation Reduction Act essentially has different tax credits and subsidies for every kind of climate technology. And it's a very classic American approach. Let the free market do their thing. We'll help it out a little bit, but we're not going to try and be academic about what we think the best technology is. And I think that's been a huge mistake by the US and myself. And by the way, a bunch of other businesses, are either moving to Houston or moving to the Middle East or moving, basically any founder that has any meaningful, promising climate technology, is getting out of here. That's pretty much it.
Interesting. And so is that where you see the future of the business long term, and the majority of your business, you see it kind of being permanently based in the US?
I mean, I think that's where it becomes complicated. I'm a European. We're a Copenhagen-based company. We're very proud to be a spin-out of the Danish Technical University. We do work with the European Union. So one of the ironies, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble for saying this, one of the ironies is that we have a 43 million euro grant project that we're building our technology out in Europe, which technically is intended to at some stage influence the policy decision around carbon utilization. So I wouldn't be as, I wouldn't say whether the long-term company is moving from a headquarter perspective or anything like that. I just think that, given the current landscape we're in, the current energy climate, current energy policies and prices in Europe, it's not a competitive region to be in. And I would very much welcome it if there was, changes to the regulatory system that would allow us to be competitive again. And we just build huge amounts of energy to be economically competitive.
Yeah.
Do you see any movement from the European Union in that direction? Like, is that something that is an understood process?
No, we hired a lobbying firm. We hired lobbyists onto the team. We did the whole spiel, and the general feedback was like, you have two fundamental problems. If you want to make any sort of update to the EU regulatory policy, for example, on climate change, you have to agree with 27 member states. That's a huge pain in the butt. On top of that, the European Union can't afford to give subsidies the same way that, let's say, the Americans can in the IRA. So one of the lobbyists that we hired basically said that it's a sort of tragedy of the commons problem combined with not having the money to really do much about this problem. So it's much easier to basically say, hey, we don't like your carbon emissions, we'll tax you, than try and find some sort of incentive problem that massively curbs production.
Interesting. That's a shame.
It is a shame.
We had Andreas Klinger on last week from EU Inc. and who's trying to build the whole 28th regime across Europe, the pan-European entity. And so I mean it's he's definitely making progress, and that whole kind of organisation is making progress. But it sounds like it has been so painful. The bureaucracy, and to your point, getting all 27 member states getting them on board is what they're going to have to do, and it is going to be such an uphill battle. But we also wanted to talk a bit about fundraising, right? Because you raised a big round last year. I think it was $40 million. What was that like? Aside from the regulatory stuff, within Europe, what was the fundraising landscape like for raising for this type of business?
I mean, it was better 18 months ago than it is now. I think, obviously, the Northvolt bankruptcy sort of became a massive headwind for anything climate related. I think that plus the new administration that was perceived to be heavily anti-climate, but kind of low key isn't as anti-climate as we thought they would be, are two headwinds that I'd say, have shifted us in a different direction. And I'd also probably say that, most venture dollars are currently going into AI. So I'd say 18 months ago was a better time. At the same time, what we found is this huge amount of appetite for businesses that are agnostic of reliance on a regulatory system. So one of the things about our company is that regardless of where we're at, the CO2 utilization piece is, for most of our partners, not actually interesting to them from a climate perspective. And that's not what we pitch them. In fact, when we're in Texas, we have billboards right now in Texas City because we're hiring for operators for our plants. Nowhere do we mention CO2, because the advice that we got from everyone is people think of CO2 and CO2 utilization, clean technologies, as a business that's trying to take people's jobs, and that's not what we're about. What we essentially do, and the biggest value to our industrial partners, is we're essentially their waste valorization, right? Every company wants their feedstock independence, they want supply chain resilience, they want to be able to utilize, vertically integrate up or downstream. And so what companies love, like our partners in Texas that we're working with, is that they can take their own CO2, turn it into their own feedstock. And so, that's actually the great thing about our business, and why I think that a lot of investors, independent of them being climate technology investors or not, what they really like about our business is that it has nothing to do with that. That's a nice side effect from a regulatory perspective. And obviously we'll lean into that narrative. But really at the core of what we do is we provide businesses with waste valorization and supply chain resilience by utilizing their CO2 feedstock and opening up a new revenue stream for them.
Amazing, very cool. Yes, I guess it's
Awesome.
yes, but to the art of the storytelling, right? And how you can, get people on side, hire the right people, and convince them that what you're doing is a real, genuine value add. And are you looking to fundraise down the line? Do you need more money to sort of build more plants to really sort of commercialize, or are you happy where you are right now?
No, I mean, I wish that we were in a business where we didn't need to raise capital in order to generate cash flows, but unfortunately that's not how it works. That's the truth of our company. And, any company that's trying to really do physical things, whether it's us, whether it's a SpaceX, whether it's anyone, you need to essentially build that manufacturing capacity, and that costs money. And so, going forward, we're not there yet, but, at some point next year, I'm sure we'll be back in the market to raise more capital to build out more production facilities.
And would that be from traditional VCs, or are there other type of finance partners that you could sort of hit up for that type of cash?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, from a purely selfish perspective, I want to minimize dilution. So if I can go non-dilutive, the more the better. Realistically, how that works is, one of the challenges, I know there's, a lot of people talk about the first of a kind financing gap challenge. I actually think that's not even, that's the smaller of the problems. I think the transition into the new asset class is actually the harder one, which is how do we deal with the fact that we have venture capitalists on our cap table who want, an annualized blended 30, 50, 80% return, and how do you deal with assets that tend to be, generating any, low double-digit returns. And so, for us as a business, that's a transition we're currently trying to figure out. That's what I know a lot of other people are also trying to figure out. How do we marry those two up? And I think that's actually been the core of my focus for the last few months, and is the core of my focus at the moment, to find an elegant way to move into the Series B. Essentially what we've done is, especially in a month and 3 days, we'll have fully validated our technology so that it's no longer a question. I don't want any investors in the future to have to become experts at biotechnology. I'd much rather be able to give them, the showcase, hey, this works. We've now commercialized the business, and it's much more of a question of how do we capitalize it most effectively going forward, which I always like to joke internally. One of the biggest challenges for climate technologies isn't the technology itself, it's a financial problem, right? It's not a tech problem. So yeah.
And
that's how we think about it.
Does being an ex-VC give you a sort of leg up or advantage when dealing with VCs, and you kind of know the way that they think, what they want, that they're kind of, their responsibilities to their LPs. Does that help you manage those conversations?
Ask my board members, ask the people who have both invested in me, and especially the ones who have passed on us. I don't know. I think, you do learn some tips and tricks. I think, everyone, Paula, you're a VC, you teach your founders to try and run a process and to keep information flow tight. And there's some things that I'm sure does help. But everyone has a different style about how they do that. Some people, the greatest fundraisers in the world, were often not VCs. So everyone figures out how to do it.
Yeah. I think there's some clear don'ts that are great for everyone to know. But I think beyond that, it's
what
really
is the biggest don't?
For me, one big don't is bringing or looping in any sort of fundraising advisors. So these intermediaries, I feel like there's actually, especially in deep tech where people are very researchy, they might sometimes, and they're not so close to the typical startup ecosystem, they might get lured into those sort of setups where they get told that they need that. I think that's, for example, a big don't. That's the founder should be the immediate line of communication there, at least in my opinion. What do you think? What's a big don't for you?
Well, no, I mean, it's funny. I remember when I was a VC and I started my venture capital career during the pandemic, and virtual meeting rooms were, for example, we were all thinking we'd start living online. And I remember I went into a pitch for a virtual meeting room company, and I got on the VR headset and I went into the room, and it was the founder, and it was like 3 corporate finance firms that the founder had hired, all just sitting there, and we're all like hanging out in this virtual meeting room, and it's like, where do I look? Who's pitching? It was all a bit weird. But yeah, I don't know. I think what you said is definitely a big don't. Running the process yourself. I think that the CEO needs to be in charge. Ultimately, that's the easiest way to say no to someone, is if they don't feel like they're liaising with the person who runs the company. And I think it's a really important, like the CEO needs to sell the business, right? That's essentially what your job is. And that's my only job, is to sell the company. I'm not a good biotechnologist and I'm not a good engineer, so I have to do something around here, and that's essentially doing sales and raising capital for us.
Amazing. Well, it looks like it's going well. But look, Max, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Awesome. It sounds like you're building a super cool business at like the frontiers of kind of like hardware and climate tech. And yeah, we'd love to see it. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be following your journey along.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Max. Bye-bye. All right, and that is 5 guests for 5 guests.
Amazing.
So I guess we wrap it up.
Such a cool journey too.
Amazing.
Such a cool journey.
Yeah. It's you always hear about the founder turned VC. You don't hear much about the VCs turned founder. So it's like a really interesting example of like a unique career path.
Totally. Super cool.
But yeah, all right. Well, look, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Quick shout out to my sponsors, Checkout.com and Spectre. Checkout.com just signed a really cool deal with Google yesterday about their agentic payments. Spectre, an amazing sourcing tool. I use it for all my research, so check them out. And that's it. That's a wrap. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much.